tell me a bit about your character in this film?
Well, I play Molotov, who was a great friend of Stalin's. They kind of grew up together. And he's utterly devoted to Stalin and thinks he can do no wrong, even to the extent of when Stalin accuses Molotov's wife of plotting against him, Molotov denounces his own wife rather than denounce Stalin. So lots of things are going on in his mind about the loyalties, and when Stalin dies, of course, suddenly it's all up in the air. I mean, you know, what's he going to do? What's going to be his role now? And to start with, he's kind of rather sidelined and rejected. So he has to find a new role for himself. And he starts feeling very bitter and very sad about what's happened with Stalin. And then in the end, he realizes that the people who are trying to take over are doing something which Stalin would never have wanted to do. So he becomes very strong and decides to get rid of people in a rather unpleasant way. But it's a comedy on the whole.
Yeah, it's a comedy.
Don't want to put you off. Yeah.
And how was the historic research for this? Prepare yourself.
Well, Armando is very good. He prepared some notes on all the various characters, and that was helpful. But you know, it's not a history film. It's not a history lesson. It is a comedy with a historical background. I read history at university, so I knew a bit about Stalin and about the early days of the Soviet Empire. But you had to remember, that wasn't going to be coming into this film, all of it. It just had to be in the back of your mind whilst you played the lines, as I had to do. So it was, it's great actually. I mean, it made me more interested in that whole period now.
Well, you portray the man himself. What is your role exactly in the film?
Well, the film is about how the survivors fought to replace Stalin. So the role of Stalin is to set up that situation at the beginning by letting us see what he was like and how people reacted to him, and then he dies. So my role is kind of to help kick the film off, to show this is what it was like, which might help to explain all the infighting, all the intrigue, all the violence they had towards each other and the people of Russia. So that's kind of the role, really, and then I have to die as gracefully as possible and leave the film to the rest of the cast to take it forward.
How did you feel portraying someone that has killed so many people and makes such an impact in history?
Well, it was fascinating because I read a lot about him when I knew I was doing it, and like a lot of these people, you think, oh, you imagine him one way, but he wasn't quite like that, really. He was like quite quiet. He wasn't very charismatic, so you've got to find a way to make him interesting and try to be as true as possible to that. So then it becomes an exciting challenge, and you kind of forget the fact that you're playing a real monster and you're just trying to find a human being who's a bit unpleasant to people. Oh, and he might kill a few, but so it's a gradual process, but it's quite exciting underneath it, and you have to set aside the fact that you're portraying someone we all know was just unbearably horrible.
Hello. Hello, how you doing?
How did you get the role? Did you audition or this?
Yeah, originally they were planning it without a Stalin, because it's about what happens after he dies. And then when they decided it would work better if we saw Stalin, they couldn't find anyone with the right, who looked right, who was the right age. So they asked for someone who could be made up, and my agent put me forward. And I thought, I'm nothing like Stalin. What are you doing? I could do Lenin, he was bald. Anyway, I went to meet them, and the makeup and hair woman immediately started to put a wig on and everything, and she was fantastic. I thought, oh, this could maybe work. And then Armando came in, and I read a bit, and I thought, oh, I really want to do this. And then it worked out. I did it, so it was great. It's good.
You watched the film, Jen?
We've seen it at a cast and crew screening. This will be the first full-blown viewing of it, but I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. And then I thought, I'm biased, I'm in it. Of course I love it.
First, how did you get involved in this project?
Well, I didn't do an audition as such. I did a read-through of an early draft of the script, and the casting director who was casting Death of Stalin had cast me in a pilot in America, a comedy pilot. So I read a different role from the one I ended up playing. And about 3 weeks later, I just got an offer, which was delightful. To not have to jump through hoops of fire and to just get offered a role was just absolutely brilliant.
And how was the historical research in this project?
Well, we did quite a bit of research, all of us. We had some research packs made for us by researchers, and we also did a lot of reading ourselves. So I researched on Nikolai Bulganin, who is my character, and the period generally. But, you know, that's kind of to just give you a foundation for your character. The rest you explore as written, you know, in the script, because it takes, you know, it takes some artistic license with the real life characters. But there is a lot of truth and true events embedded in there.
How do you feel about it to be a sarcastic comedy?
Well, I don't know if it's sarcastic, but it's satire, I think, in the best sense of the word, so that it's comedy with a very serious intent, and it's looking at power, and it's looking at the nature of power and democracy and you know, absolute power, but also it is doing it through the prism of comedy. So, you know, I loved it, and it was one of the best experiences I've ever had, actually. So.
How was collaborating with this director?
It was like a dream come true. You know, it was absolutely fantastic. You know, people use the word genius too much, but I'm going to use it now, and I think he is a genius. So.
Well, thank you very much. That's everything. First, that's the best way to enjoy a premiere.
It genuinely is on stage.
Okay, well,
It is really.
Briefly, can you tell us about your character?
I play Mikoyan, who's one of the inner sanctum of the Politburo, one of Stalin's right-hand men, fiercely loyal to Stalin, and I'm quite cocky. You know, I'm quite a bit in London or England we say a bit leery. You know, I liked a nice suit. And, you know, I was a fairly happy-go-lucky member of the Politburo. And in fact, I think he did a couple of state visits to the US. And at the time, it was sort of round about the Cold War, you know. Was it actually officially the Cold War then? Yeah, it probably was. But he was quite warmly welcomed, and I think he was a kind of human face of the Soviet Union at a time when it was regarded, you know, in the West as inhuman. So yeah, my character is quite fun. Yeah.
Being honest, how much did you know about Stalin before this project?
Quite a bit. I did know quite a bit about the revolution, and I used to be a bit of a lefty when I was young. So, you know, I know quite a bit about that, the revolution, and I mean, this is obviously 50 years after the revolution, and after the principles that informed the revolution seem to have disappeared, really, and it's just become a power struggle between some desperate old men, really, sadly, you know.
Yeah, I play Slimanov, who is a KGB agent who's a bit nervous about the way things are progressing, and one character in particular, Lavrenti Beria, seizes upon that and makes his life pretty uncomfortable for a little while before ending it.
To be honest, how much did you know about Stalin before this project?
Well, not an awful lot in terms of the breadth, but there are the key points that I think you're all pretty much aware of these days, of his position of tyranny and the number of deaths that came about under his rule. So that was and my wife's family is Polish, so they have very interesting relationship with the Soviet regime as well. So a little bit, but not a lot.
And how did you find that working in a movie with this amazing director?
It was amazing. It was very brief. I was in and out in a couple of days, but it was just a great pleasure and a privilege to be there, to be honest.
What we do is, we don't finish the script while we're casting. The script's always in an early stage, and I meet actors, and as you sit and talk to them, you get a sense of whether they feel right, and then the ones that I choose have to be up for collaboration. It's an ensemble piece, and then we write we write for them. You know, once we know who's cast, we change the script to suit their strengths or to allow them the room for them to bring their ideas to it. So that's how we get that kind of fit. You know, we start growing the script around them. Oh heavens! Well, for me, I rely an awful lot on Sarah Crowe, our casting director, because I think she's got great judgment. So if I say to her, do show me people who I may not know, but who you think are really good. And sometimes we try and find a part for them if they don't quite fit the role. I remember them and we find something else for them. Thanks a lot. Okay. Sorry. One quick one.
Why did you decide to take this situation with humor, considering it's political cinema at the end?
Well, yes, but the graphic novel was funny, and I thought, you know, the situations in the film are true, but they are genuinely funny as well, in an absurd way, you know, in a kind of frenetic, paranoid way. So that appealed to me because that seemed to sum up the air of terror and fear that was going on.
I feel the fact about that in Russia, the people seem not to like
A couple of people, it's only a couple of people, and they haven't seen the film. I'm sure they'll change their minds, you know.
Kind of weird, I don't know.
I think it'll be an interesting reaction, I think, but I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. Yeah.
What made you invest in this project?
We came across a graphic novel called The Death of Stalin, and we immediately fell in love with it. We thought there was, the potential to do a very special and unique comedy. But very quickly, the problem we had to face was, okay, who can write and direct this adaptation and find the right tone? And actually, there was only one name on the list. That was Armando Iannucci.
I believe the project started in Cannes last year. Was it?
The sales started.
The sales. But the movie has been developed for, let's say, 3 years, and we have found the graphic novel 4 years ago.
There was any sort of concerns, considering it's a film with a very strong political involvement?
Well, when we have developed the movie with Armando, we couldn't imagine that the world could change like this, At first, it has been a movie for talking about dictatorship, that's it. And it's history. It's story collapsing satire, that's it.
In terms of casting, were you thinking about someone special beforehand?
No, actually, we left it to Armando. We wanted this movie to be an Armando Iannucci movie. And I think we were right because, honestly, the ensemble cast he put together is beyond what we could dream about.
How was the work with Armando?
Amazing, great. He's a genius, really.
He's a genius. He's professional, and he's very, very nice. I mean, he's a great man, unique person.
So I know Armando. I've known Armando since university, worked with him a lot. I'd written a play about Stalin, and Armando came to see it and got in touch, and we started talking, and we saw the graphic novel. We read the graphic novel. We were excited about it, and that's how it all started.
In terms of writing this film, how was the historical research? Because
So. It was important to us that we really knew our history, because you don't want to, it is a comedy, but if you just go, it's so funny, 10 million people died, you don't want to be that person. So you need to know your stuff, so that once you know the research, once you've done the research, you can then see where the line is and you can decide on what the tone should be. The research was great from that point of view, from not knowing that we were doing the right thing, but also there's so much of the research that's gone into the movie, so much of the stuff where people go, that's crazy, how did you come up with that? And you go, no, actually that really happened. Like the conductor, there's a conductor the conductor faints because he's been asked to do a recording for Stalin of an orchestra, and they have to get a new conductor, and he conducts it in his dressing gown, and that's in front of an audience. That's true, but actually what actually happened was they had to get a third conductor because the second one was too drunk to conduct. So it's even more absurd. The reality, the stuff you come up in research, is even more absurd than what we have in the film.
And how did you come up with this absurd comedy, considering it's political cinema?
Well, I think it's because the society, the grim society at the time, was so absurd. The absurdity is there. That's what's strong in the graphic novel as well. It's the only way to engage with a society that absurd is to show how absurd it is.
So that would be to get more audience at the end, right?
Oh well, obviously we want we want to make sure, you know, we're telling a story, making a film like anyone else. So you've got to be true to the story, but also we wanted it to be really a really funny movie where you don't go, oh, I laughed a couple of times, I suppose, but where you really laugh. So that's what we're trying to do.
Have you seen it already? The film?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I'm very happy with it. Yeah, I think Armando's done an amazing job. Because you could have, it's so easy to get this one wrong. It's so easy to be just funny and forget about the terror. And what Armando's done really well in the edits and in the performances is to get the balance just right, I think.
Thank you very much. Thank you.